The day Marcus "Mac" O'Reilly got laid off from Quantum Tech Industries started like any other, with him explaining to the local fire department that no, technically speaking, his garage wasn't violating any safety codes. The quantum computing lab he'd worked at for 15 years might not have appreciated his creative approach to experimental physics, but at least they'd had proper insurance. "Look, Chief Morgan," Mac said, gesturing at his garage while his prized quantum toaster prototype smouldered quietly in the background. The containment field held perfectly, and technically speaking, the toast did achieve quantum superposition. It was simultaneously burnt and unburnt until Mrs. Chen opened the garage door to check on the noise. Mrs. Chen, who had become something of a science TikTok sensation thanks to her front row seat to Mac's experiments, waved cheerfully from her porch while continuing to film. Her latest viral video, "My Neighbor Made Toast in Another Dimension, Not Clickbait," was trending nicely. "Mac," Chief Morgan sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose, "we've talked about this multiple times. Just because you can explain something using quantum mechanics doesn't mean you should build it in your garage." "But where else am I supposed to build it? The kitchen? That's where I keep my experimental microwave. And after last month's temporal displacement incident, I promised my insurance company to keep potentially reality-altering devices in separate rooms." The fire chief just stared at him. It was the kind of stare that said, "I know enough about quantum physics to be worried, but not enough to prove you're wrong." Finally, he just handed Mac another citation and walked away, muttering something about taking an early retirement. That's when Mac's phone buzzed with the email from Quantum Tech. Something about budget cuts and liability concerns, and that incident with the quantum-entangled coffee maker in the break room. Whatever. Their loss. Besides, his pension was solid, and now he had more time for his real passion, turning theoretical physics into questionably practical garage inventions. The neighborhood had mostly adapted to living next to a laid-off quantum engineer with too much time on his hands. The occasional temporal anomaly barely raised eyebrows anymore. Old Mr. Peterson even claimed his rheumatism was better ever since that accident with the quantum field generator shifted his garden slightly out of phase with normal space-time. It was while sorting through his latest pile of scrap technology that Mac found it. At first, he thought it was just another piece of fancy electronics someone had thrown out. He got a lot of those ever since people realized he'd take anything that looked science-y off their hands. But this was different. The metal didn't feel quite right, like it was trying to disagree with the laws of physics. The circuitry, if you could call it that, seemed to operate on principles that made even less sense than quantum mechanics, which was saying something. "Huh," Mac said, turning the device over in his hands. Mrs. Chen's camera drone, another of his inventions, partially held together with duct tape, hovered closer, sensing potential viral content. "This looks like it violates at least 3 laws of thermodynamics. Neat." He carried the strange device into his garage, past the quantum toaster's dying embers, and set it on his workbench next to a half-finished project he liked to call the Uncertainty Principles Office. A device that could theoretically give you detention in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "Well," he said, reaching for his toolbox and his emergency stash of energy drinks, "let's see what happens when we add some good old-fashioned human ingenuity to whatever this is." Mrs. Chen's drone zoomed in expectantly. Her followers were about to get one hell of a video. High Commissioner Zeke was having a terrible galactic standard day. First, the antimatter coffee machine had achieved sentience again and was refusing to serve anyone who couldn't solve differential equations. Then his quantum stapler had merged all his reports into a single superposition of paperwork, and now he had to do yet another routine assessment of that backwater planet Earth. "Computer," he gurgled through his respiratory tentacles, "begin preliminary scan of Earth technological advancement. And please tell the coffee machine that I did pass advanced calculus, even if it was 3 centuries ago." The holographic display flickered to life, showing the familiar blue-green planet that had been classified as mostly harmless for the past few millennia. Zick settled into his ergonomic hovering chair, preparing for another boring report about how humans were still amusing themselves with primitive concepts like quantum computing and nuclear fusion. "Report compilation beginning," the computer chimed. "Warning, coffee machine requests proof of understanding of multivariable calculus before proceeding." Zeke sighed. "Just show me the highlights of human technological development over the past solar rotation." The display began cycling through images, humans staring at primitive rectangular communication devices, vehicles still using wheeled locomotion, and something called TikTok that the computer flagged as potentially hazardous to sanity. Standard stuff. "Fascinating," Zick muttered, not fascinated at all. "They're still using silicon-based computing. How quaint. Computer, analyze their energy production methods. Humans continue to utilize a combination of fossil fuels, renewable resources, and nuclear fission. No significant advancement in antimatter containment or zero-point energy extraction. Exactly as expected, and their space program? Still limited to their own solar system. Current technology suggests they are approximately 247.3 galactic standard years from achieving faster-than-light travel. Would you like me to calculate the exact date they might discover their first wormhole?" "No need," Zick waved a tentacle dismissively. "Just put down the usual. Species shows minimal advancement in key technological areas. Maintains classification 3B, pre-spacefaring civilization, with delusions of adequacy. Add a note about their continued obsession with something called cat videos." The computer hummed briefly. "Sir, there is one anomaly in the data. Several pieces of advanced technology appear to be missing from monitoring station 7. Probably just another calibration error. When was the last time we upgraded those monitoring stations?" "Approximately one local Earth decade ago, sir. The Budget Committee decided that full-spectrum monitoring of a primitive world was, quote, a waste of perfectly good quantum entanglement." Zeke rubbed his sensory nodes tiredly. "Just mark it down as equipment malfunction. It's not like the humans could do anything interesting with advanced technology, even if they found it. Remember that time they discovered a piece of a subspace communicator and turned it into something called a Bluetooth speaker?" "Noted, sir. Though I feel compelled to point out that the speaker did achieve 73% better battery life than their standard technology." Yes, they're very good at accidentally stumbling into minor improvements. Next you'll tell me they'll figure out how to build a proper laser cannon in their habitat units." "Statistical probability of humans developing weapons-grade laser technology in a residential setting, approximately 0.000037%. "Exactly. Now, about that coffee." The computer's display suddenly flickered. "Sir, I'm detecting an unusual energy signature from the planet's surface." "Probably just another nuclear reactor test. Or maybe they're trying to microwave another gas station burrito. Remember that energy spike from last month?" "Negative, sir. This signature closely matches the theoretical output of a Class 7 photonic devastator. But that's clearly impossible, as humans haven't even mastered basic plasma containment yet." Zick's color membranes paled slightly. "Computer location of the energy signature? A residential area in what humans designate as suburban America, specifically a garage." "A what?" "A primitive storage structure typically used to house wheeled vehicles and, according to my database, accumulate items humans call junk." Zeke stared at the readout, all four of his eyes blinking in disbelief. "Computer, run the scan again, and tell that coffee machine I need something stronger than antimatter brew." "Running scan. Also, sir, the missing technology from monitoring station 7 has been located." "Where?" "In the same garage, sir, though the energy signature suggests it's been modified, with what appears to be something humans call duct tape." For the first time in his 300-year career as a galactic bureaucrat, High Commissioner Zick felt a genuine sense of concern, not because of the energy signature itself, but because of what it implied. Somewhere on that primitive planet, a human had taken advanced alien technology, and instead of worshipping it or trying to reverse engineer it properly, had apparently hot-wired it with primitive materials into something that shouldn't be possible. "Computer," he said slowly, "send a priority message to the Galactic Council, and add a footnote to that report. Classification update needed. Species shows alarming tendency toward improvised technological advancement. Potential threat level, oh dear." Mac O'Reilly had 3 rules for garage inventing. Never work without snacks, always keep the fire extinguisher within reach, and if something starts humming in a pitch that makes your teeth vibrate, either unplug it immediately or film it for posterity. Right now, the strange device on his workbench was hitting a frequency somewhere between angry quantum bee and reality having hiccups. "Fascinating," he muttered, adjusting his safety goggles while Mrs. Chen's drone captured everything from a safe distance. "According to my readings, this thing is either a revolutionary power source or a very inefficient paperweight." He'd spent the last 6 hours connecting the alien device to various instruments, most of which he'd built himself from spare parts and optimistic interpretations of physics. His quantum field detector, mostly recycled smartphone parts and a modified microwave sensor, was giving readings that made him question either his sanity or the fundamental laws of the universe. Knowing his track record, probably both. "The problem," he explained to his audience of one hovering drone, "is that this technology seems to operate on principles that make quantum mechanics look simple. It's like someone took Einstein's equations, folded them into origami, and then used them to make a paper airplane that actually breaks the light-speed barrier." Mrs. Chen's latest live stream was breaking all her previous records. Her followers were particularly enjoying Mac's habit of talking to his inventions like they were stubborn students in a physics class. "Now, according to my calculations," he continued, connecting the device to his latest creation, a quantum energy amplifier he'd made from 3 broken gaming consoles and a modified laser pointer. "If I channel the power through this array, I should be able to—" That's not supposed to happen." The alien device had started glowing with a light that somehow seemed to be every color at once, including several that shouldn't exist in our dimension. The quantum energy amplifier was vibrating at a frequency that was making nearby dust particles start to question their life choices. "Okay, minor setback," Mac announced, reaching for his emergency snack stash. "Nothing a little human ingenuity and about 6 cans of energy drink can't solve." 3 hours and several reality-bending attempts later, Mac had the alien device connected to a contraption that looked like what would happen if a laser pointer had a child with a particle accelerator. And then that child got really into steampunk aesthetics. Duct tape featured prominently in the design, along with parts from his failed quantum toaster, and something that might have once been a gaming PC's water cooling system. "Final test," he declared, positioning his creation to point at the nearby mountain. He'd chosen that direction specifically because there was nothing between his garage and the mountain except empty field. He'd learned that lesson after the quantum coffee maker incident. Powering up in 3, 2. He never got to one, and the device hummed, sparked, and suddenly every electronic device within a mile radius decided to take an unexpected vacation from functioning. The power grid in 3 states hiccuped. Somewhere in orbit, several satellites briefly convinced themselves they were actually late for a very important tea party. And through his hastily donned welding mask, Mac watched as his creation fired a beam of coherent light that could have made a Death Star feel inadequate about its life choices. The beam hit the mountain, and for a brief moment physics took a step back, looked at what was happening, and decided to go on break. When the light faded and Mac's vision returned, he found himself staring through his garage and the new hole that now existed where part of the mountain used to be. "Well," he said after a long moment of silence, "that's definitely not supposed to happen according to any physics I learned in school." He paused, considering, "Though I suppose it does explain why my quantum field detector was showing readings in interpretive dance." Mrs. Chen's drone, which had somehow survived thanks to its quantum-shielded casing, Mac had added that feature after the temporal displacement incident, was still faithfully recording. Her followers were about to witness the most viral video in human history, at least until the government's NDAs kicked in. In the distance, sirens were already starting up, Chief Morgan was probably going to need something stronger than coffee for this one. And somewhere in orbit, hidden monitoring stations were sending very urgent messages to very concerned alien bureaucrats. Mac looked at his creation, then at the mountain, then back at his creation. I should probably write down how I did that, he mused. Right after I figure out how to explain to the authorities why there's now a tunnel through Mount Richardson that technically qualifies as a particle physics experiment. He reached for his notebook, then paused. Also, I should probably patent this before someone else claims they invented the first garage-built laser cannon capable of worrying mountains. He considered this for a moment. Though I suppose the market for that might be somewhat limited. Maybe I could advertise it as an alternative energy source. Or a really excessive can opener. The drone zoomed in on his face as he grinned. One thing's for sure, quantum physics is about to get a lot more interesting. He had no idea just how right he was, or that somewhere in space, an alien bureaucrat was having the worst day of his career. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council began exactly as one might expect, with complete chaos and a coffee machine that was still demanding calculus solutions before dispensing beverages. High Commissioner Zik stood before the assembled representatives of 17,000 civilizations, all of whom were talking at once in roughly 30,000 languages. The massive chamber of the Galactic Council, normally a model of dignified bureaucratic procedure, had devolved into something resembling a cosmic kindergarten during snack time. "Order!" bellowed Grand Chancellor Vex, their crystalline form vibrating with enough force to shatter several water glasses. "We will have order in this chamber, or by the sacred algorithms, I will put this entire quadrant in time-out." The chamber gradually quieted, though several gaseous species continued to emit worried bubbles. "High Commissioner Zik," Vex continued, their crystal facets glowing with barely contained concern, "you mean to tell us that a human, a member of a species that still thinks digital watches are pretty neat, has constructed a Class 7 photonic devastator in a garage?" "Well, technically speaking," Zik adjusted his tentacles nervously, "it's more powerful than a standard Class 7. Our initial readings suggest it's closer to a Class 9, possibly a 10. They appear to have improved the design of—" The chamber erupted again. A delegation of energy beings in the back row became so agitated they briefly achieved a higher plane of existence before being coaxed back down with promises of premium antimatter cocktails. Improved? The representative from the Silicon Consciousness Collective processed this for several microseconds. "That's impossible. Our civilization spent 3 centuries developing photonic technology, and the best we managed was a Class 6 that occasionally made toast. Actually," Zik pulled up a holographic display, "they did incorporate toaster technology into the design, along with something they call duct tape, which, quite frankly, seems to violate several laws of physics just by existing. The representative from the Rigid Mechanics Alliance actually crashed and had to be rebooted. When they came back online, their first words were, but they're still using wheels." "The human in question," Zik continued, trying to maintain his professional composure, "appears to have combined our monitoring station's power core with various primitive devices, including something called a gaming PC. We're still trying to understand how he managed to maintain quantum coherence using cooling systems designed for running something called Crisis." Grand Chancellor Vex's crystalline form clouded with worry. "Show us the weapon's capabilities." The holographic display shifted to show Mount Richardson, or rather the part of it that was now missing. Several council members began stress-molting. "This can't be happening," muttered the representative from the highly advanced beings of pure energy. "They don't even have proper faster-than-light travel yet. They still think cat videos are the height of entertainment." "That's not even the worst part," Zeke added, immediately regretting his words as every eye, sensory organ, and quantum consciousness focused on him. "Our analysis suggests he built it for fun. As an experiment, he wasn't even trying to make a weapon, he just wanted to see what would happen." The silence that followed was so profound that several species evolved the ability to hear it. "For fun?" The ancient archive intelligence, which had been quietly calculating in the corner, suddenly displayed the machine equivalent of a blue screen of death. Indeed, and according to our monitoring, he's already thinking about possible improvements, something about increasing efficiency by incorporating principles from something called anime physics. The Galactic Council's chief scientist, a hyper-intelligent shade of blue, turned slightly green. You mean to tell me that humans, when presented with advanced technology, they don't understand, just play with it like children with a new toy? Precisely. And somehow, through methods that seem to involve equal parts actual science and what they call winging it, they make it work better than it did before. This is unprecedented, Grand Chancellor Vex declared, their crystal structure vibrating with concern. If one human can achieve this in a garage, imagine what they might do with actual resources. Or worse, imagine what would happen if they start sharing their improvements on something called GitHub. There's more, Zeke added, wondering if it was too late to change careers. The human in question has already started talking about potential applications, including something he calls a really extra can opener. The council chamber descended into chaos once again. The delegation from the Silicon Consciousness Collective began stress computing prime numbers. The energy beings in the back achieved enlightenment again, took one look at the situation and promptly returned to their regular state of existence, deciding that enlightenment wasn't worth the headache. "We must act immediately," Vex declared. "This situation requires our most sophisticated diplomatic response." "You mean the protocols of primary contact?" someone asked hopefully. "No," Vex's crystal structure pulsed grimly. "This calls for Protocol 223-B, what to do when a primitive species turns out to be terrifyingly innovative. Though I must note, this protocol was written as a joke during last year's office party. And what does this protocol suggest? First we panic, then we send diplomats, and finally," Vex paused dramatically, "we hope they're willing to explain how they did it, preferably without using any more duct tape." In the back of the chamber, the coffee machine finally granted Zik his antimatter espresso, having decided that the current situation was proof enough of his understanding of chaos theory. Agent Plex had trained for decades in xenodiplomacy. They'd studied 17,000 species, mastered the art of cross-cultural communication, and even learned how to use chopsticks. But nothing in their training had prepared them for this moment, standing in a suburban garage watching a human casually modify reality while eating something called instant ramen. "So," Mac said, slurping noodles as he adjusted what appeared to be a quantum flux capacitor with a screwdriver. "You're telling me that thing I found actually fell off your monitoring station? I thought it was just another weird piece of tech someone threw out after a failed Kickstarter." Plex's universal translator struggled to process the concept of Kickstarter before giving up entirely. Behind them, High Commissioner Zik was trying very hard not to have a nervous breakdown as he watched Mac's latest modification to the laser cannon, which now incorporated parts from a toaster, 3 game controllers, and what appeared to be a lava lamp. "Mr. O'Reilly," Plex began carefully, "you've accidentally created one of the most powerful weapons in the known galaxy. This is a matter of utmost galactic security." "Weapon?" Mac looked genuinely surprised. "Oh no, you've got it all wrong. This isn't a weapon. It's a proof of concept for a new energy transmission system. See, I figured if it can punch a hole through a mountain, it could probably power a small city. Though I'll admit the aim needs work. Also, want some ramen? I've got plenty." Zik's color membranes went pale. You're planning to use a Class 9 photonic devastator as a power source?" "Well, yeah, I mean, the energy output is incredible. And once I figured out how to stabilize the quantum matrix using this old PlayStation controller and some code I borrowed from Minecraft, it became pretty manageable, though I did have to use the good duct tape. The cheap stuff just can't handle trans-dimensional energy fluctuations." Mrs. Chen's drone, which had been documenting everything for her now classified TikTok account, zoomed in on Plex's face as they tried to process this information. The alien diplomat looked like they were experiencing all 5 stages of grief simultaneously. But this technology took our civilization centuries to develop, Zik burst out. You can't just hotwire it with primitive gaming equipment and adhesive strips. Why not? Mac shrugged, finishing his ramen. Sometimes the simple solutions work best, like this cooling system. It's just a modified water cooling rig from my gaming PC. Works better than the original design, especially after I added the RGB lights. Did you know they improve efficiency by 12%? I think it's because they look cool. Plex and Zik exchanged looks of pure existential dread. The human wasn't just modifying advanced technology. He was improving it using principles that seemed to defy both physics and common sense. Mr. O'Reilly, Plex tried again. Our scientists have some concerns about your modifications. Oh, you mean the quantum harmonics? Yeah, I had to dampen those. Was causing some weird effects in the neighborhood. Mrs. Chen's cat started existing in 3 dimensions simultaneously. She got great views for her videos, though. No, we mean, Zik waved his tentacles frantically. Everything. You can't just combine advanced alien technology with human ingenuity, Mac grinned. Sure you can. Watch this, I just figured out how to increase the power output by 300%, using nothing but an Arduino and the processing power from 6 old smartphones mining cryptocurrency. The device hummed to life, glowing with an energy signature that made several orbital sensors short-circuit, and a passing galactic scout ship decide to take an immediate detour. Fascinating, isn't it? Mac continued, oblivious to Plex's growing panic. I'm thinking of uploading the blueprints to GitHub, you know, for peer review. GitHub? Both aliens shouted in horror. Well, yeah, science should be open source, right? I mean, once I figure out how to document it properly. Right now, the comments in my code just say things like, don't touch this part, it makes reality nervous, and if this variable goes above 7, we all start speaking in mathematical equations. Mrs. Chen's drone captured the exact moment when Zik's professional demeanor finally cracked. The High Commissioner slumped against a workbench, accidentally activating what appeared to be a prototype quantum toast accelerator. The Council needs to know about this immediately, Plex muttered, reaching for their subspace communicator. Humans aren't just accidentally achieving what took us centuries. They're improving it with duct tape and video game parts, Mac offered helpfully. Yeah, you'd be amazed what you can build with stuff from a garage sale and a complete disregard for traditional physics. Hey, want to see my latest project? I'm trying to combine your power core technology with an old Nokia phone. I think I might accidentally create an indestructible energy source. The aliens could only watch in horror as Mac reached for another roll of duct tape, humming happily as he prepared to once again casually violate several laws of physics. The galaxy changed rapidly after what became known as the Garage Incident. The Galactic Council, faced with the reality that humans could basically MacGyver their way through advanced physics, made some hasty adjustments to their policies. Earth's classification was quickly updated from pre-spacefaring civilization with delusions of adequacy to, oh no, they're improvising. Mac O'Reilly, much to the horror of various alien scientific institutions, was appointed Earth's first Chief of Innovative Technologies. His first official act was to request a bigger garage. I don't understand, complained the representative from the Silicon Consciousness Collective during a council session. We gave them access to our advanced laboratories, our most sophisticated equipment, and they're still working in storage units. It's worse than that, Zik reported, his tentacles twitching with anxiety. They're starting something called maker spaces. Imagine thousands of garages, all filled with humans just tinkering with things. The council chamber erupted in panic at this news. Several energy beings had to be talked down from a higher plane of existence again. Meanwhile, back on Earth, things were getting interesting. Mrs. Chen's viral videos of Mac's experiments had inspired a whole new generation of garage inventors. The Galactic Council's worst fears were realized as humans everywhere began applying their unique brand of innovation to alien technology. "Did you see what happened in Toledo?" Plex asked during an emergency briefing. "Someone combined our matter replication technology with something called an air fryer. They can now make infinite, perfectly crispy French fries." "That's nothing," another diplomat chimed in. "There's a teenager in Mumbai who rebuilt our quantum communication array using 6 smartphones, and what they claim is the power of anime physics. It works better than the original. We still don't know how." The galaxy watched in a mixture of horror and fascination as humans approached advanced technology the way a child approaches a new toy, with complete disregard for the instruction manual and an unshakable conviction that they could make it better with a few minor modifications. Mac's garage, now officially designated as Earth's premier research facility and storage solution, became a symbol of human innovation. The laser cannon had been successfully repurposed as a clean energy source, though occasionally it still punched holes in reality when Mac got bored and decided to try something fun. "The problem," High Commissioner Zeke explained to the Council, "is that they're not just using the technology, they're improving it in ways that shouldn't be possible. A human in Australia combined our anti-gravity technology with something called a skateboard. Now we have teenagers doing kickflips in low Earth orbit." Grand Chancellor Vex's crystalline form clouded with worry. "And what about O'Reilly? What's he working on now?" We try not to ask too directly," Zick admitted. "Last time we did, he started explaining something about combining our faster-than-light technology with what he calls rainbow road physics from something called Mario Kart. We're afraid to know more." The galactic community eventually had to accept a harsh truth. Humans weren't going to follow the normal technological development curve. They weren't going to spend centuries carefully advancing through each stage of scientific progress. They were going to grab whatever technology they could find, take it apart in their garages, put it back together with duct tape and spare parts, and somehow make it work better than it had before. As for Mac, he continued doing what he loved best, pushing the boundaries of physics while consuming concerning amounts of energy drinks. His new business cards, printed on quantum paper that existed in multiple dimensions, simultaneously read, "Marcus Mac O'Reilly, making the universe question its life choices since 2025. Mrs. Chen's TikTok account, now with an intergalactic following, kept documenting it all. Her most popular video series, "My Neighbor Accidentally Improved Alien Tech," again, had fans across 17,000 civilizations. Even the coffee machine that had once demanded calculus solutions now watched regularly, though it still insisted on solving differential equations before dispensing beverages. And somewhere in a suburb that had gotten used to occasional reality hiccups, a garage door would open each morning. Inside, surrounded by a mix of alien technology and hardware store purchases, Mac would pick up his screwdriver, look at his latest project and say, "I wonder what happens if I try this." The universe had learned to hold its breath whenever he said those words. After all, you never knew when someone might accidentally revolutionize galactic society while trying to build a better toaster. The Galactic Council eventually added a new warning to their official handbook. If you find humans tinkering with advanced technology, do not attempt to stop them. Just make sure they have adequate safety gear, a fire extinguisher, and for the love of all that's sacred in the universe, keep them away from the good duct tape. They also added a footnote, and whatever you do, don't tell them it's impossible. They tend to take that as a personal challenge.